got a terrific Maryland team coming in here. We've been preparing for. Got obviously some returning players that were pivotal for him last year, as well as in Fernando and Cowan, as well as a great blend of freshmen. So they're having a terrific year. Mark does a great job coaching them. They run a lot of great stuff, and they're playing really well right now. So looking forward to a great challenge here tomorrow night.
After the Iowa game, you talked about 21 turnovers. You talked about them shooting 50% in the second half, and a lot of things to work on. When you got with this team for the first time after that game, what did you start with? What were you trying to rebuild or trying to work on once you got a chance to start working on?
The next day in practice, we were just looking at some of the fundamental things we have to do better, and a lot of video, a lot of film review. I think that was probably as important as anything, Adam, is just having a chance to kind of watch some video together here. And then, we've looked at some things, obviously, offensively that we need to do better, as well as our defensive stuff. So it was really across the board. But our biggest concern here of late has been our offense. So I think we looked at that to begin with.
How much of that offense would change or be different if Caleb hadn't had the foul trouble that he's had? And it seemed like maybe the Iowa game, that was the most that really did frustrate him.
Yeah, I think he was frustrated because it had happened, the 2 games prior. So, I'm frustrated with that. He's frustrated with that. But at the same time, I don't think we do so much with him when he's in. But our guys have responded when he's been out, right? He can't play 40 minutes a game. So our guys have responded throughout the season when he's been out. We have struggled here in league play at times to score consistently when he's been out. But I'm confident other guys will step up.
Do you think in the past 3 games that you guys have played appreciably different or appreciably worse than you did early in the season? Or is there, I don't know, are you playing relatively similarly to different results?
I don't know that we have played. I don't know that we played better. I think we probably have certainly played worse at spots. I think what sometimes is difficult for people to realize, maybe for fans to realize, is league play is a different animal. And it's really a different animal when you're 10, 12, 13 games into your season. And now teams are saying, okay, we have this catalog of film on all of your players. We have a relatively new team. We have a catalog of film on all of these guys, and here's how we're playing. Here's how we're defending you. Here's how we're playing you off. Here's how we're attacking you offensively. So there's some adjustments that need to be made on our end that I need to do a better job of, and collectively that we'll need to make with now how teams are clearly playing us.
Is it tough to make those adjustments when you guys are still so young, relatively?
Yeah, but I think it's imperative that we do because, you get played differently now. Now, if we had like all 5 starters, then probably there's a game plan, there's a play sheet on how we're going to, going into the season on, hey, this is how you got to play certain guys. Well, we've got relatively some new guys that we've implemented. Teams have made choices in some of those ways on how they're defending us collectively, and we just need to adjust as a team.
Chris, you've done this long enough now. You've seen a little bit of everything.
Yep.
This is the first real bump in the road in 2 years. What's the hardest thing about coaching that you've found? Not necessarily in this situation, but what's the challenge? What makes it hard?
I think there's a lot of hard things. I mean, we're all blessed to be in this position, but I think somebody said, Izzo said after the game, this is a really fun thing, and he was talking about something. He said, this is a really fun thing in this job. There aren't many fun things in this job, I think it's relatable in some ways. But I think the most difficult thing is probably I think managing the overall individual kind of temperature of guys and the collective temperature of guys and throughout kind of a difficult stretch. I think that's a challenge. I mean, there are other difficult things about the job that I would put up there, but in this stretch, that's probably been the most difficult thing because some guys are struggling with their overall confidence. Some guys aren't struggling as much with their confidence, but when you hit bumps in the road, we've got a team that I think collectively could be struggling a little bit with that, and I've got to figure out how to give them some.
Do you coach differently? I mean, in football, they say all the time, when they're playing well, you're tougher on them.
Yeah.
When they're not. I mean, how does that change? Again, you've done this a long time. 3 losses.
Yeah.
Well, how do you take that temperature? What do you see?
Well, I think I think you try to eliminate as much as possible hammering results. I think that in our job, we are trying to be about the daily process as much as possible and kind of surrendering the results. Because we just think ultimately that's going to take care of it. It's hard. There's a discipline required to that. But I do think in the midst of a stretch like this, yeah, I think you don't coach the same as when you're 8-1 and you're concerned about overall complacency of your group. I think you do coach a little bit differently based on what you feel like your team needs.
When you go back and look at these last 3 games, and specifically Caleb's foul trouble, are you seeing anything consistent? Are you seeing anything coachable with the fouls, or is it just, he needs to be smarter with the way he's playing defense?
Yeah.
From your analytical eye, what kind of are you making it?
I think teams are clearly, going at him, maybe more so. He's also, right, he's seeing bigger bodies consistently, both that are going at him and defensively. And Caleb's really smart. We talked about that. There is an advantage with some of the team. Now, not every team we played in the non-conference, but some of the teams we played in the non-conference where he just has a size advantage. Now, teams can throw big body after big body after big body at him in length and size. And I think also they're attacking him because I think they have an understanding of how important he is for our group. For this particular group. Last year, let's be honest, if Caleb got in foul trouble, we would slide Kata there some, and it was a nice kind of change of pace. But I think that he knows, and we've spent plenty of time looking at it on film, and I'm not saying it's going to be corrected overnight, but he knows some of the adjustments that he needs to make, and I think that my thing with him in terms of being officiated is if he has fouled in certain situations, not saying he hasn't, I don't think he can be held and shoved in the back and grabbed, and his freedom of movement that we talk about with drivers can be the same. Or I think it needs to be officiated the same. That's kind of been my biggest frustration.
You mentioned how you guys kind of adjusted last year. No Kata this year. Offensively, obviously, it's been a bit of a struggle when he's not in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you turn to? What do you do to get that offense going? Because you have had periods earlier in the year when you've been able to score without him and against good opposition.
Right.
Who are the guys that you look to and kind of encourage to be more aggressive?
I think that's what we're trying to figure out and find out. I think Keyshawn, when we played well, he's been aggressive and have had good nights. CJ, and then I think our freshmen have had good moments as well. Kyle has played off some of those guys. Andre's had moments where he's been able to score the ball, but I think that's what we're trying to figure out a little bit as a team, is where that's going to come from.
Looking at Maryland, Cowan looks like he's averaged 24 points in the last 3 games, and You had some games, I think High Point, you took away their best guy, but then Winston maybe not quite as much for Michigan State. Just what's the strategy to maybe limit the damage that he's going to do, I suppose? And what's the challenge you put out there for your guys?
Yeah, he's really dynamic as a point guard, really fast, incredibly shifty. He's crafty, does a great job getting to the free throw line, as well as he can make really big shots. He's made, you look at every one of his close games, he's been really big shots that he's made, including the last one when they were down 1 late. You know, I think we're going to have a great team approach with him. The thing about them that makes them so good is they have excellent shooting collectively, and they have now really 2 interior threats. So you cannot just focus your defense on him. Obviously, Bruno has shown an incredible ability to score with his back to the basket, and so has Jalen Smith. Their loads inside, but I think it's going to require a great team defensive effort because they do have shooting on the perimeter as well.
And I know Iowa had 2 big guys.
Yeah.
I think it was 36-18. They outscored you in the paint.
Yep.
Just as you mentioned, Fernando and Smith. How difficult is that going to stretch you guys inside and stay out of foul trouble and everything else that you have to do to kind of contend with their length, I guess?
Yeah, their length and their rebounding too, I think is you see the rebounding numbers and it's pretty astonishing how good they are. But it makes sense with their length and their ability to go get balls. I think that's why they've had the success they've had in league play is they have great balance offensively, great length on the interior defensively, and a dynamic point guard.
2 of those 3 losses, though they had great interior play, it ultimately came down to the guard play at the end of the game, whether it was Cassius Winston or Geo Baker. And now you're going to play a team where their leading scorer is a perimeter player.
Yeah.
You go through Caleb, but has there been any emphasis on any of the guards maybe stepping up in more of a role when he's not, whether he's in the game or not?
Talking about offensively?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely there has. You know, we cannot just be one-dimensional and be successful. There's no question, and our team knows that and understands that. Like we're just no team can be one-dimensional and have efficient offense, and absolutely that's going to be critical for us to have that.
When Caleb goes out the game, whether it's because of foul trouble or just needing a rest, what changes offensively as far as how you approach possession by possession? You
know, we run some things differently, not everything differently, but we run some different actions, and we'll look at some things, maybe not just for our perimeters because there are other guys we post outside of Caleb, but we'll look at some things probably for our perimeter. It changes a little bit our attack for sure.
You talked about taking the temperature collectively and individually. Where's Keyshawn right now as you go through that with him?
I think Keyshawn's, and I've learned this about him here, is he wants to do everything perfectly and he wants to do everything right. And I think he's by nature is a bit of a pleaser. And I think he can get really down on himself. I think he can get discouraged. And I think that he's struggling a little bit. Sure, he's struggling. I mean, I think we have a lot of guys who are. And listen, this is what we're doing. It's not easy, and you got to kind of face those struggles. We all have to face our struggles. We got to grit our teeth and figure out how to move on. And that's the situation that he's in, along with a couple other guys right now.
When you look at his career, and he's had to do a lot as like a kind of a combo guard. He's had multiple roles.
Yeah.
But he's looked like a guy who can sort of just go get a bucket, or at least he has in the past, and he's done that here a few times. But I think his field goal attempts are at a career low right now.
Yeah.
How much of your conversation with him is just sort of to start attacking and start to look for his shot a little bit more?
Yeah, we've had that conversation with him, and we've had it in the midst of games as well. But I also think that guys have to be comfortable. And we've also talked about there has to be a comfort level with him in terms of what he's doing and what he's not doing. And he's not the kind of guy that's going to be a high-volume guy. We have some high-volume guys. That's not who he is. So I think you have got to be careful as a coach that you're not just trying to force feed him. Yet at the same time, he has to understand that he's got to be a little more aware that our team needs him. But he's got to play how he's comfortable playing too, and that's just he's got a great feel, and he's never been a guy who's just been super high volume.
Chris, I know that Rob earlier said that as a coach you've been through a little bit of everything, but
yeah.
3-game losing streaks are actually really rare for you.
Yeah.
Is managing those sort of coaching 101, or has things been harder for you because that hasn't been something that you've been through a lot?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, you guys all know this. You feel losses way more than you feel wins. And your family feels them, and you feel them, and you got to make sure your team, in some ways doesn't feel them as much as you do. Because I think as coaches, you don't want that. You don't want them to feel kind of the weight of the world. So, listen, when I started, Rob knows this, Gardner Webb, I was in as massive of a rebuilding situation as you could possibly encounter, and I'm certain there was some tough sledding in that deal. I'd rather not go back and look at year one, but I'm sure there was. So I think you just figure out a way to commit. As corny as it sounds, you figure out a way to commit to the process of what can we do to figure out a way to just play a few possessions better, and at the same time be aware as coaches that are there some things that we need to adapt and to give our guys put them in better position, and you're always asking that as a coach through good stretches and bad stretches. I'm always asking, what can I do better? What do I need to do better? What do we need to do better as a staff? And we've certainly done that in this stretch.
I know you talk about things that you do in good times and bad, and one of those things for you is honesty. How do you balance that with the need for the guys to get a little bit of sugar these days and not feel the weight of the world, as you put it?
I'm much more comfortable being honest in the good times. Not that I'm not being honest now, but I do think that they need to feel some hope and optimism, and in this stretch here that we're going through, and in belief in what we can be, and that's what we've tried to do.
You feel hope and optimism?
Yeah, I mean, I like this group a lot. I really like this group a lot, and I really enjoy coaching this group. And listen, I don't know when our next game is after this one. So if you're asking me, hey, as you look ahead, we're not looking ahead. So my hope and optimism is that we're going to go to practice today and find a way to get a little bit better, and that's about. I know with this group, and I believe in this group, that they're going to have the right attitude and right approach, and that's going to give us a chance to get better.
Chris, when Adam asked you right off the bat about what you looked at, you talked about putting the offensive end up on the video screen. When you looked at the turnovers, do you see a common theme between them, and how do you work to get that part corrected? Yeah,
I just thought we were really careless in the Iowa game. And in some cases, the Rutgers game. I see a combination of things. I think we're careless at times. Perhaps as coaches, we need to get the ball in other guys' hands. And then I see some youth and inexperience that guys doing things that older guys don't typically do. But that's probably what I see the most is those things.
You talked after the Iowa game about wanting to see some leadership in some moments when you were mixing and matching lineups. As you've maybe had a little bit more chance to dive into some of those combinations you used, did you learn anything about some guys in that game and the way you were able to substitute as liberally as you were?
Yeah, I think you learn, you learn a lot just because you see some guys in game experience. I don't know that in league play having that equality of minutes is most productive for your team. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily realistic. Some of it was a byproduct of foul trouble. Some of it was guys having an opportunity. Yeah, you certainly learned some things from that.
Had you gone in, I know the foul trouble obviously was a thing, but had you gone in thinking you were going to mix and match as much as you did?
I thought that we would play a few more guys because the turnaround was relatively quick. And I was a little bit concerned about that, a 7 o'clock tip on the East Coast to a Saturday afternoon tip in the Midwest. So I sensed that just there was going to be some general fatigue within our group. That motivated some of it.
Just because of the amount of young guys you have on this team in comparison to last year's team, does this year feel like more of a rebuild, reset year than what you had last year?
I tried to not use terminology that would along those lines, both in the preseason and now, and not even with our guys. I'll let other people kind of work through that. But I did think that with the number of new freshmen and sophomores that we were going to be playing, that there's going to be some transition stuff that's going to happen. Like I really, went into the season thinking that, and now, we're facing that with adversity, this group for the first time, and we're seeing how teams now have adjusted to playing us, and we'll see if we can adjust and perform better.
Chris, is there any chance, does this cross your mind, that you're a victim of your own success? In terms of, not that it came easy, but it was rolling, and then you hit Big Ten. Of course, you win early Big Ten, so maybe that skews this. And the young guys especially are like, whoa.
Yeah.
This isn't as easy as we thought. Not that they thought it was easy. Does that make any sense?
It does. It does. And it does change. Listen, when you go 12-1, it changes your perspective, your fans' perspective, everybody's expectations, thoughts. That's just reality. And I don't know that I would have, the number of people that told me in the offseason, you made a critical error winning in your first year, I could rattle off 100. Fans on the street, Coach, what were you doing winning so much your first year? And, I've been well documented why I said that. Hey, listen, I wanted those guys to go out with the best year they could, and we had tremendous seniors that deserve that. And I think the thing that I think has been probably most eye-opening for this group, which is completely understandable, is the amount of energy that I think we face when we play other teams now. And you try to tell them, hey, listen, we went 15-3 in league play last year. And there is going to be an energy that you face when you go 15-3 the next time you play people, and when you have a number by your name. And if we're not tough enough and strong-willed enough, and if we don't play with enough of an edge, then we won't like the result. So I think, is there some understanding of that through this stretch? Perhaps. But I don't know what the alternative is to not trying to be as good as you can be in a given day, month, or year. And that's what we're going to try to do here. So.